What happens when a fierce street vendor marries a billionaire out of a contract and ends up changing his entire world? Zara had fire, grit, and nothing to lose. Blake had money, pride, and everything to protect. But when fate forces them into a fake marriage, sparks fly, secrets unravel, and love shows up where neither expected. This isn't just a story about riches. It's about transformation, courage, and the kind of love that's earned, not bought. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, emotional stories that stay with you. The ballroom gleamed like a dream carved from gold. Tall windows flooded the space with honeyed sunlight, catching every shimmer of the crystal chandeliers and casting rainbows over the guests' designer suits and silk gowns. Photographers clicked away, capturing the moment for tabloids already drafting headlines. At the altar, Blake Ainsworth, tech mogul, billionaire, and Manhattan's most sought-after bachelor, stood in a custom midnight blue tux, glancing at his platinum wristwatch for the third time. His jaw was tight, his expression unreadable, but anyone who knew Blake could spot the tension threading through his shoulders. Next to him, Natalie Langford, daughter of a senator and socialite darling, stood pristine in a gown that had its own security detail. Her smile was camera-perfect, but her hand in Blake's trembled slightly. The pastor, a well-rehearsed man with a soothing baritone, cleared his throat and opened his Bible. "Shall we begin with the vows?" he asked. Natalie blinked. Then, with a practiced grace, she leaned toward Blake and whispered, "Excuse me? I need the bathroom. I'll be right back." The crowd chuckled softly. Blake arched a brow. "You're joking." She offered a soft squeeze of his hand and a smile so fragile it could have shattered. "Just a minute," she said and turned, veil flowing behind her like mist as she glided down the aisle. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. Blake's best man leaned over. "Want me to check?" He didn't respond at first, just stared at the stained glass windows as if searching for answers in their kaleidoscope of saints. Then he muttered, "Go." The best man returned, face pale. "She's not in the bathroom, or anywhere in the building." Murmurs erupted among the guests. Phones lit up like fireflies. Natalie's maid of honor was speechless, her face drained of color. She didn't tell me anything," she stammered. Blake didn't say a word. He turned sharply, descending the altar steps as if he were walking into battle. Reporters outside screamed questions, flashbulbs exploding. He shoved his phone out of his pocket, dialing Natalie, straight to voicemail. Again, nothing. She vanished. Someone whispered behind him. Blake's driver opened the door to the sleek Bentley. "Where to, sir?" "Anywhere but here," Blake snapped. They drove through the heart of Manhattan, then crossed into the Bronx, the city's polished skyline giving way to rusted fences, bodegas, and graffiti-tagged buildings. The further they drove, the quieter Blake became, his eyes blank as they watched the world blur past. Finally, he barked, "Pull over." The car stopped at the edge of a busy street corner, the kind of place someone like Blake never stepped foot in unless it was on a charity board. He got out, loosened his bow tie, and leaned against the car, the heat from the pavement radiating through his polished shoes. That's when he heard it. Laughter, loud and unfiltered. Across the street, a small taco stand was surrounded by a crowd of young men, their shoulders shaking as they laughed at something the woman behind the counter had just said. She wore a faded crop top and high-waisted jeans, her curls tied up in a red bandana, a soda cooler slung around her waist. "You think this is charity?" she scolded playfully. "If you no get money, move aside. My tacos don't run on dreams." The boys roared. Blake stared, something unfamiliar tugging at him. She was fire and grit, and no pretense. No filter, no designer gloss. "Who is she?" he murmured. His driver glanced over. "That's Zara. She runs this block. Tacos, braids, babysitting, whatever you need. Fierce woman, doesn't take crap from anybody." Zara tossed a bottle of soda to a little kid. "Tell your mama I said thanks for the plantain last night." Blake watched her. No poise, no pearls, just presence. He crossed the street. She clocked him instantly and rolled her eyes. "If you're here to complain about the noise, rich boy, keep walking," she said, wiping her hands on a napkin. "I'm too busy for nonsense." Blake smiled for the first time that day. "Actually, I'd like to hire you," she blinked. "Excuse me?" "I want you to marry me. Today." Zara hadn't seen a penthouse in her life, except on reality shows. And now she was standing in one, barefoot, in jeans with a mustard stain on her sleeve, gripping a tote bag that held exactly 3 outfits and a jar of pepper sauce. Blake's place was a glass cathedral of wealth, marble floors so shiny she could see her reflection in them, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Manhattan skyline, and furniture that looked more like sculpture than anything functional. She tilted her head, arms folded. "You sure this ain't a hotel lobby?" Blake didn't answer. He was already halfway up the floating staircase, tie still loose, muttering something about getting a lawyer to draft the contract by morning. Zara wandered into the living room, kicked off her shoes, and sank into a velvet couch that swallowed her whole. It smelled like money and cold cologne. The next morning, Blake laid down the rules over black coffee. No drama, no unexpected guests, no talking to the press, and definitely no walking around the building in fuzzy slippers. Zara stared at him from across the marble island, spooning sugar into her tea. "You should have married a golden retriever, not a woman," she said flatly. He didn't flinch. "This isn't a joke, Zara." She leaned back in the bar stool, legs crossed. "No, but you are. I'm the one saving your designer butt from tabloid suicide. So don't act like I should curtsy every time you enter a room." He blinked. She smiled. Their first public appearance came faster than either of them expected. A charity gala for clean energy, filled with influencers, hedge fund wolves, and high-fashion vampires. Zara wore the only dress Harper had managed to find that didn't make her look like an overpriced chandelier, sleek black, minimal jewelry. Her hair was in a neat bun, and her heels were borrowed from Harper's closet. As soon as they stepped into the room, silence followed. Then came the whispers. "That's her? She looks different. I heard she sells tacos." Blake's expression didn't crack. He kept a hand on the small of Zara's back as they walked the marble floor like royalty. Zara, for her part, held her head high, though every instinct told her to bolt. One woman in a glittering gown leaned in with a plastic smile. "So Zara, where did you two meet?" Zara smirked. "On a sidewalk. He was looking lost. I gave him directions to humility." Blake choked on his champagne. After the gala, back in the limo, he finally exhaled. "You know you nearly caused 3 heart attacks back there?" "You're welcome," she said, pulling off her heels. "They should try seasoning once in a while. Might loosen the stick in there." "I get it," he cut in, but his lips twitched. Over the next few weeks, the penthouse transformed. Zara filled the kitchen with spices, her playlists echoed off the marble walls, and she taught the housekeeper how to fry plantain. Blake watched from the sidelines, bemused and annoyed in equal measure. She argued with the chef about seasoning and challenged his boardroom authority without blinking. "You're chaotic," he muttered one night, watching her dance in the kitchen with a broom. "And you're boring," she shot back, spinning dramatically. But then came the turning point. One night, after another stiff dinner party where she refused to play the obedient trophy, Blake snapped. "Can you just tone it down for once? You don't belong in that world." She froze, then smiled tightly. "Neither do you, Blake. You just fake it better." The words hung in the air, sharp and raw. Later, he found her on the balcony, wrapped in Harper's oversized hoodie, staring out at the skyline. "Why'd you agree to this?" he asked quietly. She didn't turn. "Because I wanted more, and you," she glanced at him then, "you looked like you needed saving, even if you didn't know it." Blake swallowed hard. For the first time since the contract, he didn't see a street vendor. He saw a woman on fire. And somehow he wasn't afraid of the burn. The smell of cinnamon and roasting plantains filled the narrow storefront as Zara wiped her forehead with the back of her hand and nodded at the contractor. "Nah, shift that sign a little left. It gotta catch sunlight by noon," she directed. It had been 3 weeks since she moved into Blake's world, and in that time, she hadn't just occupied his penthouse. She'd taken the first installment of their contract and bought a space in Brooklyn. Her dream wasn't just to play wife for hire. She wanted to build something real. And now, with Zeed's Bites painted in bold red letters across the shop front, it was beginning to take shape. Blake watched it all unfold from a distance. He hadn't offered advice, hadn't sent an assistant, hadn't even asked what she was planning. But each night, when she returned home smelling like flour and ambition, something in his cold, orderly world shifted. She'd hum to herself while reheating leftovers, sometimes kicking off her heels with a grunt before plopping beside him on the couch. And slowly, unknowingly, Blake had begun to look forward to the sound of her key in the door. It confused him. Zara was unpredictable, loud, stubborn. But she also smiled with her whole face. She laughed without restraint. She burned brightly, and when she stood beside him, he couldn't look away. One morning, Harper burst into the penthouse, stilettos clicking and energy bouncing off the walls. "You are not taking that girl to the summit looking like a taco truck mascot," she declared, tossing fabric swatches onto the coffee table. Zara raised a brow. "Excuse you? You're going to be seen," Harper said. "By press, by execs, by people. You need a stylist, a dress, makeup that doesn't melt under lights." Zara folded her arms. "I ain't nobody's Barbie doll." Harper smirked. "No, you're a firecracker. Let's make sure you explode properly." Blake expected resistance, but Zara surprised him. She let Harper and her team work their magic, though not without sass. "Don't touch my eyebrows," she warned the makeup artist. "They're natural arches of authority." The night of the summit arrived with flashing lights and velvet ropes. Zara stepped out of the town car in a deep emerald gown that shimmered like moonlight on water. Her hair was pinned in soft curls, and her confidence was palpable. She didn't cling to Blake's arm. She owned the carpet. Cameras turned. Voices whispered. "Is that the wife? She looks like she walked out of Vogue." Blake extended a hand to her as they ascended the grand staircase, and she took it. Not out of need, but out of power. They were no longer pretending, or at least the lines were starting to blur. Inside the gala, Zara navigated the room with surprising ease. When an oil magnate's wife scoffed, "How does a street vendor end up here?" Zara smiled sweetly. "Same way a rich man ends up humbled, by accident and fate." Blake watched from across the room, scotch in hand, heart thudding with something dangerously close to pride. When Zara caught his gaze, she didn't smile, she winked. After the event, the car ride was quiet. He finally spoke. "You were impressive." She snorted. "You sound surprised." "I am," he admitted. Zara leaned back, eyes on the passing lights. "People underestimate me. I like it that way. Makes proving them wrong more satisfying." He looked at her for a long moment. "You enjoy being underestimated?" "I enjoy winning," she said simply. And that night, as she fell asleep on the couch, still in her gown, Blake stood nearby, watching the slow rise and fall of her breath. The woman who'd been a joke at the altar had become something more. Something formidable. And for the first time, Blake Ainsworth realized he might be the one out of his depth. Rain poured in sheets against the city windows, blurring the skyline into streaks of silver and gray. Zara sat by the window of Z's Bites, chin resting on her palm, watching droplets chase each other down the glass. The restaurant was closed early for inventory, but her mind wasn't on numbers. It had been 3 days since she and Blake spoke more than a few words. Ever since the summit, something had shifted. Not in public. There, they were perfect. But in private, tension crackled between them like a live wire. It started with the guest list. Blake had invited a Michelin-starred chef to tour the restaurant. A casual business connection, he claimed. But the moment Zara saw the man, tall, dashing, British accent thick as molasses, smiling a little too long, complimenting her cooking with a glint in his eye, Blake had gone cold. "That guy's not here for food," he muttered later. "Really?" Zara had snapped. "Maybe he's just not afraid of a woman with ambition." Blake said nothing. His silence was louder than any insult. "Now," she sighed, tapping her fingers on the wooden ledge. The door jingled, and she turned, half expecting one of her staff. Instead, it was Blake, soaked to the bone, suit clinging to him, hair flattened by rain. "You lost?" she asked, standing slowly. He looked at her, eyes unreadable. "I came to apologize." She blinked. "I acted like a jealous idiot," he said. "You're right, he was just impressed by you. And I—" He ran a hand through his wet hair. "I didn't like seeing it." Zara walked toward him, arms crossed. "So you came to start a fight in my space again?" "No," he said quickly. "I came to ask you to come home." Her brow rose. "We live in the same house. That doesn't mean it's a home." His shoulders tensed. "I don't know how to do this, Zara. I don't know how to care without controlling. It's the only way I've survived." She softened slightly, but only slightly. "I'm not one of your companies, Blake. I'm not something to restructure." "I know." He reached into his coat, pulling out a velvet box. "Which is why I want to do this right. No more contracts. No more pretending." Zara took the box slowly. Inside was a ring, but not gaudy. Simple, elegant, a small emerald surrounded by a thin halo of diamonds. "I want a real marriage," Blake said, voice quiet but sure. "Not because I need to fix an image, because I don't want to lose the only woman who makes me feel human." Her breath caught. "You think this fixes everything?" "No," he said, "but it's a start, a real one." She closed the box, eyes locking with his. "You hurt me, Blake." "I know," he said. "Let me earn you, not just pay you." For a long second, silence. Then Zara reached up and tugged him by the lapel. "You better not screw this up." He smiled. "I'm terrified of you." "You should be," she whispered. They stood there, rain outside still falling like drums of the universe, the tension between them dissolving into something raw, something unspoken. The next morning, the tabloids exploded with pictures of Blake Ainsworth kneeling in the rain outside a taco shop, ring in hand. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire bows to street queen." Back at the penthouse, Harper clapped so loud the neighbors might have heard. "You did it!" she squealed. "You're officially the most iconic couple in the city." Zara rolled her eyes but smiled. Blake, watching her from across the room, couldn't look away. Not now. Not ever. He was all in. So was she. But neither of them knew. They were just getting started. Zara stood at the center of Z's Bites, now fully transformed into a destination rather than just a neighborhood spot. The golden pendant lights shimmered against polished wood. Conversations hummed across the space, and laughter danced in the air like music. The aroma of grilled tilapia, coconut rice, and baked plantain was her orchestra. She moved between tables effortlessly, alternating between playful pidgin and crisp English, making customers feel like VIPs, whether they were first-timers or regulars. In her maroon jumpsuit with gold embroidery, hair neatly tied back, and tablet in hand, she looked like a woman exactly where she was meant to be. And yet, her eyes flicked toward the door every few minutes. Blake hadn't visited in a week. Since she said yes, truly yes, things had changed. He'd given her space, kept his distance, but not with coldness, more like quiet awe. It was as if he was afraid of getting too close, of breaking something delicate. And truthfully, Zara wasn't sure she wasn't the one afraid of being broken. The door chimed. She looked up. Blake stood there, dressed in an understated charcoal suit, his hands empty, his posture relaxed but eyes intense. For a moment the restaurant faded around her. It was just him, just her. She didn't move, neither did he. Then he smiled, slow and genuine. "So this is your kingdom." Zara lifted a brow. "Welcome to the empire. You come for food or forgiveness?" He walked to her, threading through the tables like he belonged. "Both, maybe, but mostly just for you." The guests fell into a hush as Blake stepped up on the small stage where local jazz artists usually played. Zara's eyes widened. "Blake," she warned. He took the mic, voice strong but honest. "Ladies and gentlemen, I won't keep you from your delicious meals, though I recommend the grilled tilapia, especially if she made it." Light laughter. "But I came here tonight because I've realized something. Love doesn't come dressed in lace or perfection. Sometimes it comes in bold fabric and louder-than-life voices." Zara folded her arms, trying not to smile. "I married Zara for convenience," he continued, "but I stayed for truth, because when I watch her move through this world, I see courage. I see beauty. I see a woman who makes me question everything I thought made me powerful, and then shows me what real strength looks like." Gasps. Applause. A few people wiped tears. Zara stood still, arms loosening, jaw clenched only to keep her emotions from spilling out too fast. Blake stepped down, walked up to her, took her hand. "This ring," he whispered, producing a second band from his pocket, thinner, more delicate, "isn't to replace the first. It's to honor what we've built, not from money, not from a deal, but from fire, forgiveness, and something I can finally admit is love." Zara swallowed hard, her throat tight. "You really do like making a scene. I just like making you mine, properly." She slipped the ring on herself, her fingers steady. "Guess this means I gotta stop charging you for tacos." He grinned. "Please don't." They kissed, not the kind posed for cameras, but the quiet kind, the real kind. The kind that silenced a room without trying. Weeks passed. The penthouse was no longer sterile marble and silence. It now smelled like spices and coffee, echoed with music and murmurs at midnight. Zara still ran her restaurant. Blake still ran his empire. But now they met in the middle, on kitchen stools over breakfast, on the couch watching bad reality shows, and at the edge of their bed, laughing at the chaos they never saw coming. One night, as they sat wrapped in a blanket on the balcony, Zara whispered, "You really think we're gonna make it?" Blake looked at her, eyes soft. "We already did." And as the city pulsed around them, two hearts once worlds apart beat in perfect rhythm, built not by fairy tales, but by grit, growth, and a love that was entirely, stubbornly, beautifully earned. The story of Blake and Zara is more than just a romance. It's a reminder that love isn't always elegant or expected. Sometimes it arrives in the middle of a storm, through the clash of two worlds, and grows not from perfection but persistence. Blake thought power was control, and Zara believed survival meant never relying on anyone. But both had to unlearn their armor. He had to stop using money as a shield, and she had to realize that vulnerability wasn't weakness. In each other, they found what neither was looking for, but both desperately needed. Someone who would challenge, ground, and love them exactly as they were. This story teaches us that true love isn't found, it's built. Not through grand gestures, but through honesty, respect, and the courage to grow. It shows that we don't need to change who we are to be worthy of love. We just need someone who sees the value we often hide from the world, and even from ourselves. And above all, it reminds us, the right love doesn't complete you, it empowers you. Where are you watching this story from? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful, real-life inspired stories like this one. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next tale that might just shift your heart.